Did you know a single plague ship ended the Roman Empire's final chance at glory? In 541 AD, Emperor Justinian I stood at the peak of his power. He had reconquered Italy, North Africa, and much of the old Roman territories. Constantinople buzzed with trade from across the known world, while his masterpiece, the Hagia Sophia, rose into the sky. Then a grain ship arrived from Egypt carrying more than just cargo. Within weeks, mysterious deaths began spreading through the capital. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands daily. Soon 10,000 people were dying every single day in Constantinople alone. Even Justinian himself fell ill, hovering near death for weeks. Bodies piled so high they were loaded onto ships and dumped into the sea. By the plague's end, half the empire's population was dead. The dream of restoring Rome died with them. One plague ship had accomplished what no army could, ending Byzantine ambitions forever. Here are 5 things you didn't know about Yersinia pestis, the bacterium that changed human history forever. First, this microscopic killer murdered over 200 million people across 3 separate pandemic waves. The Plague of Justinian, the Black Death, and the Third Pandemic wiped out entire civilizations. Second, it can sleep in soil for decades, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Buried corpses from medieval plague victims still contain living bacteria after 700 years. Third, it literally melts your lymph nodes from the inside out. These swollen and blackened buboes can grow as large as apples, filled with liquefied human tissue. Fourth, it evolved specifically to turn fleas into biological weapons. The bacteria blocks flea stomachs, making them desperately bite more victims to feed. Fifth, it's still out there right now, thriving in prairie dog colonies across the American West. Every year, hikers and campers contract plague in Colorado, New Mexico, and California. This ancient killer shaped human civilization more than any empire or war. Did you know that while Europe was still fumbling with heavy gold coins, the Mongols had already created the world's first paper money, backed by the death penalty? In 1260, Kublai Khan made a shocking decree across his massive empire. All trade would now use paper money made from mulberry bark, stamped with imperial seals. No more heavy metal coins, just lightweight paper that represented a real value. But here's the terrifying part. Anyone who refused to accept this paper currency would be executed. Merchants initially laughed at the idea. Paper for gold? Impossible. Then the executions began. Suddenly everyone took those mulberry bark notes very seriously. This wasn't just about convenience. This paper money allowed the Yuan dynasty to fund massive construction projects and military campaigns without the limits of physical gold. While European traders were still weighing coins and checking for counterfeits, the Mongols were operating a sophisticated paper economy. They were 300 years ahead of the West in monetary innovation, all enforced by the ultimate guarantee, your life. What if President Roosevelt had been healthy enough at the Yalta Conference to push back against Stalin's demands? In February 1945, Roosevelt was dying, barely able to concentrate during crucial negotiations. But imagine if he had been sharp and forceful, demanding free elections across Eastern Europe. Instead of accepting Soviet control, America and Britain could have insisted on shared occupation zones. Stalin might have walked away from the table entirely, or even resumed hostilities with his former allies. Without Soviet buffer states, there would be no Iron Curtain dividing Europe, no Berlin Wall splitting families apart for decades, no Cold War arms race that brought the world to the brink of destruction. But here's the unexpected consequence. Smaller nations would have scrambled for nuclear weapons much faster. Without Soviet protection, countries like Poland and Czechoslovakia might have developed their own bombs. The world could have faced dozens of nuclear powers instead of just 2 superpowers. One diplomatic stand could have prevented the Cold War, but created something far more dangerous. Did you know a man survived enough poison to kill 10 people, multiple gunshots, and brutal beatings, only to finally die by drowning? In December 1916, Grigory Rasputin held dangerous power over Russia's Tsarina Alexandra during World War I. This wild mystic and healer was seen as the monarchy's greatest threat. Prince Felix Yusupov and fellow nobles hatched a deadly plot. They invited Rasputin to the prince's palace for wine and cakes laced with massive amounts of cyanide. Rasputin ate everything. Nothing happened. He remained perfectly fine. Panicked, Yusupov shot him in the chest. Rasputin collapsed, then suddenly stood up and attacked. They beat him mercilessly and shot him again. Still, he fought back. Finally, they dragged his body to the frozen Neva River and threw him in. But the autopsy revealed the horrifying truth. Water filled his lungs. Rasputin was still alive when they drowned him. The nobles thought killing him would save the Tsar, but his death actually sparked the Russian Revolution. Their plan backfired completely. Did you know the Battle of Lepanto was won by a secret weapon that most people have never heard of? In 1571, the Holy League faced the mighty Ottoman fleet in the Mediterranean. Everyone expected the Ottomans to dominate. They had more ships, better sailors, and decades of naval victories. But the Christian galleys carried a revolutionary new weapon called Perrier. These weren't ordinary cannons. They were mounted on swivel platforms that could pivot 180 degrees in any direction. While Ottoman ships could only fire straight ahead with their fixed guns, Christian vessels could blast enemies from multiple angles. At close range, these Perriers fired deadly grape shot that shredded enemy crews and rigging. When the fleets clashed, 200 Christian galleys defeated 230 Ottoman vessels, using this single technological advantage. The Ottomans had never faced anything like it. Their naval dominance ended in one afternoon. This wasn't about superior tactics or divine intervention. One simple innovation changed the balance of power between Europe and the Ottoman Empire.